from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up today on AgDay, a unique calf finds a home.
Once we got here with her and I saw her, I'd love her.
Floodwaters rise again as a tropical storm hits Texas. And waters from heavy rains move downstream in the northern plains.
It's a disaster.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado and the all-new Silverado HD, the strongest, most advanced family of Silverados ever.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Clinton is on assignment. Parts of the Missouri River Basin are underwater again. The National Weather Service saying rainfall during the first 2 weeks of September has brought between 200 and 600% of normal rainfall over the entire basin. Those rising waters are flowing downstream into the Missouri River. You're looking at aerial video near I-29 and I-680 near the Omaha, Nebraska airport. Both farms and roads are underwater for the third or fourth time this year. We talked to the farmer who shot this video. He farms in Tekamah, Nebraska, about an hour north of Omaha.
Got about 500 to 600 acres down here that is completely underwater that we haven't been able to farm now for the last 2 years. What happens, the river's so high, it's actually backing in our drainage ditches, filling up the farm. So any more rainwater that we get on top of that, like the 4 inches we had last night, it can't get off the farm anywhere. It's a disaster.
At the same time, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is now starting to increase water levels from Gavin's Point Dam in Yankton, South Dakota because of the flooding. It will all go down the Missouri River, which could create more flooding over the next few days. And this situation is much the same in South Dakota, where farmers can't seem to get a break from severe weather. And with the most recent flooding covering thousands of acres of land, many farmers are wondering what's next. Reporter Jenna Lemaire from AgDay affiliate KDLT shows us how the flooding is affecting farmers in Centerville.
You don't expect this type of stuff in September.
Craig Anderson is one of many farmers in Centerville that's seen flooding take over their land.
It's been real difficult because even since the earlier floods, you think, well, once that gets gone, maybe you can get a crop in. Well, then you get another flood and then it just keeps postponing and everything.
Anderson says the flooding consumes miles of land and any cover crop or feed that was planted in fields is now gone.
To get a better idea of how deep this flooding is, I'm 5'3", and this water is said to be 5 feet deep. But the damage affects more than just the crops.
Well, it affects everything. It affects you mentally. It affects you with the bank. Your ability to borrow money is getting less and less because of these things happening.
He says the constant flooding takes in everything they do.
It's wearing on us. Yeah, it's thank goodness for the federal crop insurance program, but that doesn't make us whole by any means. It doesn't allow us to do what we want to be doing, which is farm.
Moving forward, Anderson says many farmers are reaching out to the government for financial assistance.
We've been talking to out in Washington and at the state to kind of see whether we can get any federal money or any kind of money to help improve some of this situation. It isn't as easy to recover as what one would think.
In Centerville, Jenna Lemaire, KDLT News.
And more water problems in Texas, where the remnants of Tropical Storm Imelda are causing heavy rain and flash flooding across the eastern part of the state. Just look at all of this water at a farm in Dayseta, the home of Oliver the African Watusi. We've told you about Oliver before. The 1,600-pound African Watusi steer went viral after visiting a Petco store. Oliver is on higher ground, but the owners are working to move other animals out of the water. His owner saying everyone will be okay, but saying the situation is worse than when Hurricane Harvey hit in 2017. We're told hundreds of high water rescues were needed overnight to save people from their homes. The discussion about flooding continues with hearings on Capitol Hill this week. USDA officials testifying on Capitol Hill, giving an update and reinstating information about important farm programs. Bill Northey, USDA Undersecretary of Farm Production and Conservation, testifying before the House Ag subcommittees on the new Farm Bill implementation, trade mitigation, disaster assistance, and disaster relief. He touches base on WIP Plus.
In addition to the WIP Plus is payments for milk loss, for stored grain losses, and for 2017 peach and blueberry freeze losses. In addition, all producers with flooding or excess moisture-related prevent plant claims in 2019 will receive a top-up payment of 10 to 15% of their indemnity.
According to our Washington correspondent, Jim Wiesmeyer, as of September 2nd, the Risk Management Agency has paid roughly $2.2 billion in claims related to Prevent Plant this year. The problem with eastern equine encephalitis is continuing to grow. Health officials say Triple E has been diagnosed in 21 people in 6 states. 5 people have died from the mosquito-borne virus. Michigan alone has 7 cases of Triple E and 3 deaths. One of the hardest hit regions is a farming community in southwest Michigan. One confirmed case there is Bill Teichman, the owner of Tremendous Fruit Farm. He is fighting for his life in a long-term care facility. There's also a suspected case in nearby farmer Jim Whitwright, who is in ICU. It's something to watch, a new life beginning on the farm, as meteorologist Kimberly Newman shows us in today's Crowd Comments.
Betsy, check this out. The latest arrival to a farm in Ontario, Canada. Ricky shared this photo with us on Twitter and says she loves walking into the barn and seeing a new baby. You can see that Mama is right there close by looking after the new calf. She's already standing up, something that typically happens within the first 30 minutes of a calf's life. Meanwhile, if we take a look at wind speeds across the nation, you'll see right through the midsection is where we are going to experience some incredibly strong winds moving through the day today. As we head into the weekend, Friday into Saturday, winds die down gradually, but with a cold front sweeping right through the plains, we are likely to really churn things up, causing some mixing, and of course more strong winds are expected for your Saturday. That's a look at what's happening, and of course I'll have more details in your full forecast coming up.
The markets have been under a lot of pressure from overseas crops. We have an update on the key countries we're watching. And later, the story of this calf who's just one more unique thing at a farm in Louisiana.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Siouxland Energy Cooperative in Sioux Center, Iowa has announced it will idle its ethanol production. The company pointing the blame at the small refinery exemptions to the renewable fuel standard recently provided to oil refineries. The president of the board for the plant saying in a news release, quote, "The administration's actions unfairly benefit the oil industry at the expense of our local farmers, and if not addressed soon will impact the livelihoods of many," end quote. Siouxland has 385 farmer members. It can produce up to 90 million gallons of ethanol annually. The USDA reported weekly export sales that were stronger than expected, and that was bullish news for the market on Thursday. Here's an update from the CME.
And we've seen the cattle market get a little bit of a bid all week going into this cattle on feed report. I think probably you get a little bit of position squaring and some short covering. Prop prices up. On top of that, we had the expectations of a firmer cash trade, which we started to get. We got 101 to 101.25 on the Fed Cattle Exchange. And so I think that helped support prices. And you also got expectations for tomorrow's cattle on feed report pretty friendly. Now, this is a little bit of a caution flag because you're in the situation where the market might overpromise and underdeliver. And we're at the top end of technical resistance, 105 to 106. Ultimately, we wouldn't be surprised to see the market fizzle out more or less against here. Not looking to roll over real hard, but maybe retest the bottom end of the range, 103, 104. And now, as far as the soybeans are concerned, pretty optimistic here. 880 to 885 is previous resistance, now becomes support. This represents the 50 and 100-day moving average. If the bulls can defend this here throughout the rest of the week, which is really not much left, about a session left, what's left of today as well, I think we're in a good shape.
There are several other countries we're watching right now when it comes to crop production. Clinton Griffiths and Brian Splitt focus on South America.
Brian Splitt with agmarket.net, our guest today. Brian, you know, we traditionally talk a lot about South America, but this year with all the trade stuff going on, we've kind of pushed it back to the back burner. But as we get into another growing season and South America is getting ready to start planting, what are you watching from them as what to expect in the coming year?
Well, it's been very dry in Brazil.
June, July, August were some of the drier 3-month time frames that we've seen in recent history since about 2015. And traditionally what the South American producer is going to want to see is a nice rain before they get their crop planted. And so if we stay dry in South America, any delay in plantings down there is going to extend the period of time that world buyers may need to come to the U.S. And so that would be then specifically for the soybean crop. And then what will happen is if the soybean crop in Brazil is delayed, that is going to push back the safrinha corn crop, thereby then extending the period of time that world buyers may need to come to the U.S. for their corn needs. So we have seen concerns about the corn export program. And there's really nothing in the recent history that has said that that's really turning around right now. But if the world buyers see the potential for the U.S. crop to get smaller and the potential for the Brazilian crop to be delayed, that may cause them to be a little bit more aggressive and start booking values, especially when we're at very cheap values compared to where we were just 2 to 3 months ago.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that are very dynamic in this market that we should start to get answers to, hopefully over the next month, 2 months. Is that kind of what you're trying to sort out?
I would say that for the domestic news that we're looking for, October and November are going to be very critical to see how the USDA addresses the yield potential both for corn and for soybeans.
Sure.
One of the interesting things is everybody's been looking at the implied pod weight of the soybeans, and in order to get the yield that the USDA is projecting right now, we need to have a record pod weight. So that should come down over the next couple months, and we feel that that will lead to lower soybean yields in the next WASDE reports to come.
All right, well, it could be a pretty interesting market as we get toward the end of the year. Thank you so much, Brian. We'll be back with more Ag Day coming up.
To contact Brian Splitt at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net. Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. Ag Day, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
Welcome back in. Obviously, with very dry conditions down through the state of Texas, what's happening now with Tropical Depression Imelda is going to be a situation that causes flash flooding for many folks on the eastern half of the state. Meanwhile, very wet a little bit farther to the north, and you'll see there is some good news in the forecast as a low pressure system drags closer to the soaked Dakotas and parts of Nebraska, but doesn't actually bring a lot of rain. Let's first take a look at what Imelda does, rising farther north and eventually fizzling out. There's nothing there in terms of energy to support that storm moving forward with any real energy. So that's good news there. Meanwhile, off the coast, we'll watch the exit of Humberto and what's left over of that storm. A nice high pressure system for the eastern half of the country is going to create this blocking system, keeping things quite dry out towards the eastern seaboard. But here's what I was talking about, a low pressure system gradually pulling through Saturday morning into the afternoon hours does briefly bring some rain to that very moist area of the country. Off to our west, we've got a high pressure system setting up shop. That's going to keep us dry there. The cold front eventually moving forward into the Great Lakes region as we get towards the second half of the weekend. So how much rain falls? Let's take a look at this. There's already some very wet weather up towards parts of Wisconsin, and then of course what's left over from Imelda farther south. As we move forward, that low pressure system is eventually going to draw through the plain states, bringing some moisture, but not as much as potentially could be part of that narrative. Good news in the long run. As we move forward, very warm conditions will linger to our south. Temperatures in the 90s for Texas. Meanwhile, we could potentially be talking a couple of flakes, yes, that is snow, up towards Salt Lake City. Notice how cold it is there. As we continue pushing forward here, you'll see tomorrow afternoon, we are still quite warm to the south, holding on to that chilly air in the Rockies. Moment by moment, you'll see that there are some major changes taking place here, from a trough through the midsection of the nation, getting us into Monday, and then a cold spell actually sinking farther down and getting right into parts of the Great Lakes region by Friday of next week. That's a look at your forecast across the country. Now let's take a look at what's happening in your neck of the woods. Record-breaking rain from Imelda impacting Beaumont, Texas, a high of 85. Logan, Utah, rain possible with light winds today, a very chilly day with a high of 59. And Lenox, Massachusetts, sunny and dry.
Coming up, the fight against a disease that can wipe out wheat. But researchers are working to find a solution. The latest on their research next. Federal officials have approved turning loose a non-native insect to feed on an invasive thistle. The invasive thistle sprouts in everything from rangelands to vineyards in the West. USDA says it will permit the use of the weevil, native to Europe and Western Asia, to control yellow star thistle. The agency says there is little to no risk of the insect attacking native plants. It says the weevil will initially be released in California. Additional releases are planned for Idaho, Oregon, Washington, and possibly Nevada. It can wipe out an entire wheat crop. But can anything be done to stop it? Researchers at Kansas State are looking into the wheat blast situation. Here's an update on what they're learning.
We worry about this disease because it's hard to control. So in regions where it's established, farmers stop growing wheat because there's nothing they can do. When the weather is right, they're going to lose 100% of their crop. Wheat blast is a disease that emerged in Brazil in 1985. The fungus has jumped to the wheat crop, and it's a very serious disease. It's very hard to control. This fungus is really good at overcoming the resistance we try to use. So we've been using genomics to try to understand the mechanisms of variability in this fungus. We discovered that the fungus has extra small chromosomes in addition to its 7 regular chromosomes. So these small chromosomes are highly variable, and they're present in some strains, but not in other strains. So we have identified a useful resistance, which can be incorporated in the varieties that are in the area at risk. We've done forecasting to identify the area at risk for this disease. We've done work with fungicides, and so we're just putting together a management plan to control this disease. We need to keep that disease out of U.S. wheat.
Coming up, the story of a calf that's going viral, how Elsie found her new home that's just as unique as her. Next.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
A Louisiana man recently spotted a calf that you could say had a leg up on others at the auction. As Carl Wiggers from our friends at This Week in Louisiana Agriculture reports, the calf named Elsie just adds to the uniqueness at one farm.
Off a rural road in Hathaway, you'll find some horses, a couple of turkeys, a handful of goats, and a very unique calf named Elsie.
He just sent a Snapchat picture to me. He was at the sale barn, and I opened it, and I work with a friend of mine that's from here, and I showed her, and we were immediately like, oh, we gotta have this.
And then immediately she's like, no, I don't want it.
But he knew that once he got here with her and I saw her, I'd love her, and he was right. I mean, it's with every animal we ever get. I don't really say no.
They lowered the price to $35, and I was like, well, you know what? If nobody gets it, it'll probably go to the back and end up dying because they're going to split the cow at the calf from the calf. So I went ahead and got the calf.
Matt Alexander says those first few days were crucial for Elsie.
First 3 days I was kind of worried. It was kind of weak looking. I was like, man, it's not going to make it.
We were really worried that she wouldn't at first, and so it was really cool every day to watch her progress, and not only progress, but to develop a really cool personality. She's very spunky.
Aside from caring for Elsie and the many other animals around the house, Matt enjoys escaping to his workshop, where he's always working with his hands.
I've been doing leather work for probably around 15 years now. I can do a little bit of everything. I haven't really mastered none of it, but I can do it good enough. Leather turned into knives, and then knives are still being made, and then, I'm doing more leather. Every year around Christmas, I do a bunch of custom duck lanyards and, just whatever the hunters want, and that's my busiest time is whenever I get in there. I've built saddles before, I've do knife sheaths, belts, chaps, This lifestyle, I mean, it's good. You know, you come and go as you please. You don't have a 9-to-5 job, so you're not getting a weekly check. You know, I like it. You know, I mean, I wake up and I do what I want to do, and and there ain't nothing wrong with it. I wouldn't change nothing about it.
Reporting for Ag Day, I'm Carl Wiggers with This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
Our thanks again to This Week in Louisiana Agriculture for sharing that story. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. For all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Have a great